Hi there, Editing Sky here again to tell you that this video is part of my Weston Wintertime project. This video was meant to be one big long video, but my video editor quite literally ate itself and did not want to work, so this is now a 3-part video series. This is part 2. I will be going over days 5 and 6 of my Weston in a week, and then the next video will be the last part, so hopefully you won't be seeing too much more of me. Without further ado, let's get going. Hello, it's Friday, and I'm here to recap episode 7, his Butler final match, and episode 8, his Butler locking up. So here are my notes for episode 7. I think I enjoy the cricket more in the anime. I think it's easier to kind of see the vision of it when it's been animated. It's amazing in the manga as is, but I'm not really a sports person and I'm not a sports anime person, so this one was a little bit harder to wrap my head around. My friends and I joke all the time that Black Butler is my favorite sports anime. I also really love the moment where CL says, "Never doubt a demon when it comes to exploiting human desires," or something to that nature. And then the little animation of Sebastian going like this with a little heart, it's so funny. I was also noticing that when Sebastian is chasing down the headmaster, a couple of the shots are a little blurred a bit, and I think that really adds to the atmosphere of like him being this ethereal, shadowy thing that even Sebastian can't quite reach. After Lau and his friends get escorted away from the cricket field, we see Maurice Cole, who has ratted them out, and he also now compares himself to CL and says that he knows how a cheater works. And I thought that was really interesting too, continuing that thread of comparison between the two. There is so much action in this episode, and I think it's really fun. And I also love all of the little cutaways they do, the dramatic cutaways where they've named all of their moves. They make me laugh really hard every time, but also at the same time, I gotta respect it. They also have this moment with Bluer where he sees the juxtaposition in CL, where he is the smallest and frailest of them, as he says, but that he has the most drive. And I think that, again, ties into just CL's personality in general. He was the weakest in his family, but he has kept on going because of his determination, and he knows that he's going to win in the end, and so he doesn't back down from things at all. Again, I don't give Greenhill enough credit. He admires their own brand of sportsmanship and respects it, and I think that's really cool. Also, I think that Greenhill looks like Erwin Smith. Just a little bit. I can't unsee it. That's all for episode 7. Let's move on to episode 8, his Butler locking up. I get this incredibly sneaking suspicion that this might be my favorite episode in the arc, because I wrote like 2 pages of notes on this, so let's get going. I find it funny that Red House is in the stands, completely recovered. Good to see them, glad they weren't too badly injured. CL lays it on so thick in the beginning of this episode. The whole, "I don't mind the pain, we won!" And then instantly cut to him pitching a fit in the infirmary about it. I think it's hilarious. I also love the classic card that we get again with Sebastian's desserts, and it's all sparkly and blingy, and I love it. Love that they included the panel to anime of CL's eyes just looking at the dessert. I think it's so cute. And the bit where everyone bursts in through the door singing "He's a Jolly Good Fellow" just makes me laugh so much. It's absolutely brilliant. While they're explaining how they pulled off the second miracle of sapphires, it really hits home for me that CL would go to any length to accomplish what he wants and needs to, even if it is something as small as a cricket match, even if it is, you know, something that he could force his way through. I feel like he's viewing all of this as playing a game within a game. And I don't know, I just think that's really cool to view in the overall scope of the story as well. This is the boat parade episode, so it is going to be very special to me. I love the colors of the boat parade. I love how dim but still like vibrant it is at the same time. I love that they added Charles's chicken into the story, which makes me hope that they will someday animate the bonus chapters and the side chapters, because I would love to see the Easter egg hunt. Would love to see his Butler requested, the one with the Ice Prince and all of the fairy tale side stories. All of them, actually. I would love to see all of them animated. So that gives me a little bit of hope, because the chicken's kind of random if you don't know the context. CL also remarks to Sebastian that he doesn't understand why Blue House kept going even when their defeat was assured, and Sebastian says that he doesn't understand the concept of losing well, and CL doesn't either. And I think that this is kind of like a little glimpse into how being around Sebastian has influenced CL, and how, you know, having an invincible demon at your beck and call has altered the way that CL views certain situations, and how he walks into things so confidently now, and I think that's really cool. Ciel is getting the outfit out for the boat parade, and Sebastian reveals that he had one tailored for him specifically because clearly the one that probably his father wore would be too big. Sebastian pulls out this perfectly tailored outfit for the boat parade for him, and he says that he had it prepared in advance because he was certain of Ciel's victory. And I think that really clues us into how they both have developed together, because Sebastian clearly has some measure of confidence in Ciel now. I know that they planned out the entire second Miracle of Sapphires together, but Ciel did a good portion of that plan on his own, and he had to execute things and do things himself, and he was just using Sebastian to help him along the way. And I think Sebastian sees that, and I feel like they have changed and grown in how they work together, and I think it's really cool and really good storytelling that we can see something so complex like that in such a simple action that could also just be written off as Sebastian being a perfect butler. The moment where they fall into the water and the fireworks go off, it gets me every time. It's so gorgeously animated, and I was so pleased with the way they animated it. It was so gorgeously done, and the colors and the dialogue and everything. It's just an absolutely perfect scene. And then it leads into all of these gorgeous stills of the party that are just taken straight from the manga, and it is perfect. My partner keeps saying that this entire season feels like a love letter to the Kuro fans who have been very passionate about it for many years, and I would agree with that. It feels so detailed and elegantly done, and I'm beyond thrilled with it. I think this episode is the closest thing we get to wholesome in this entire arc, and I think it's really fun, and then it is immediately shattered by the arrival of the Midnight Tea Party invitation, which I'm upset that they didn't make the Midnight Tea Party teacups, because I want one. I want 5. A whole set. I want to have midnight tea parties with my Midnight Tea Party invitation cup. I think it's so mysterious and adds so much to the atmosphere that they literally lock everyone in their rooms with like chains and padlocks. It's so creepy, and it adds to like the impending doom that we feel going into the tea party. I love when the P4 welcomes Ciel to the party, and then Chesslock is playing the organ, and it opens up into the secret passageway. That it's definitely in the manga, but I hadn't realized that was what was happening. And so the first time I saw this, my jaw was on the floor, and I still get the chills every time I watch that scene. You know what else gives me the chills? Derek Arden showing up. When we get the moment where Derek comes through the door and is doing his "I smell the delicious aroma of teeth" bit, it's so chilling. And the way they chose to end it with the camera flash on his picture, tying everything together, was just, ooh, it's perfect. I love this episode so much, and it feels so much longer than the other episodes to me, probably because we move through so many scenes. We go from the cricket, the infirmary, the boat parade, the after party, the invite in the dorm, to the tea party. It just feels like this very long fluid. It feels like a really big long day. The 4th of June is a long day for Ciel. But I just think it's such a cleverly crafted episode, and I love it. I have a good feeling that might be my favorite episode. I do think that I am going to leave the last episode off of my ranking list because it is separate from the arc. I know it's still part of the season, but it is a side chapter that is separate from the arc, and it deserves its own like little honorable mention over here. So I don't think I'll be including that on the numbered list. Tonight I'll be watching episode 9, His Butler Having a Laugh. I will also be watching episode 10, His Butler Assenting. Which means that today I will be reading chapters 82 to 84. We will be finishing volume 17 and going into volume 18. Funny story, my copy of volume 17 is a little warped and wobbly. I had 17 and 18 on the edge of my bath one day, and I enjoy reading in the bath. Sue me, don't sue me. I think you know where this is going. Both of my copies fell into the bath, and I looked down on them in horror, Ciel Phantom Hive's face staring up at me through the water. And I was horrified because I love these so much. This one didn't get as damaged as my copy of volume 18 did, and my partner bought me a brand new copy of it, and I was over the moon. I hadn't been expecting it, and I was just suffering with a very badly water damaged book, and it was very thoughtful of her. So anyway, for today's tea, I have a special one. This is the Stephen Smith Dandelion Chai number 5. can only get at the Grand America Hotel. They serve it at their midnight tea service. They serve it at their afternoon tea, and it is my favorite tea I think I've ever had. I only have one pouch of it left, so I think having this while reading about the midnight tea party is an appropriate time to have my last little bit of it. Made a big cup of dandelion chai because I want to enjoy it. If you get it at just the right temperature, it's so nice and so summery. Honestly, drinking this is like walking through a big summery field. It's got dandelion, it's kind of nutty. I really like it. Perfect. On to the midnight tea party. All of the chapter cover arts in this arc are so good. I also really love this one. I've been seeing a couple of people cosplay this one, and I think it's really pretty. I would love to do this cosplay as well. It's so cool. CL's little fascinator hat is so incredible. He's got like biscuits on there and a cup of tea. It's incredible. I think about the Weston arc, a couple of panels come to mind, but this is one of them, if not the one. Just the close-up on Sebastian's face, him dropping down behind CL, his guys completely gone, back in Butler mode properly. This feels like a callback to the very first volume where Sebastian pulls the tablecloth off for the wine can spill on it, except this time it's a little bit more intense. And we've come a long way from saving the tablecloth at a dinner party. I know a lot of people were upset that there weren't Reapers in this arc. Honestly, if the Reapers had shown up, they would have given the entire plot away. Imagine it, because Derek's soul was gone, which is why Sebastian couldn't find him. So if a Reaper shows up and goes, yeah, I collected his soul like a little while back, the entire game would have been up. So I think that was strategic on purpose. I also have so many questions about how a certain someone got in this position. I want to know how he went into the interview for this and went, yes, I would be an excellent headmaster for this place. All right, volume 18, let's go. I love seeing the P4 happy before everything went wrong. I want to know who wrote the letter to the prefects, because obviously they had figured out that it would go through Derek and that it wouldn't get delivered to the prefects, and they couldn't go directly to them. I want to know who was clever enough to write this poem that only they could figure out. I'm sure it doesn't really matter, but I do wonder who it was. Forget how chilling this bit is. And this was, ironically, one of the moments that made me love Violet's character so much. He's so interesting because I never noticed this, he instantly goes for the door after Greenhill strikes for the first time and blocks the door. Like, he has split second of a reaction time and goes and blocks the door. And then later on, when Greenhill is going, what did I just do? Violet is the first to say that he is not the only prefect there and that they will all take the fall with him. Find Violet to be such a loyal character, to an extreme fault, of course, but I do like that about his character. I also find this moment to be really rich. CL's still kind of playing the I'm a good guy bit with the how could you say that when you've taken their lives, as if everything in Book of Circus didn't happen. But that's none of my business. For once, we have Sebastian agreeing with Undertaker that humans are supremely tragic, absurd, and delightful. And I think that's very interesting. I think that Sebastian is very fascinated by humans and their humanity in particular. We get the bizarre doll explanation 2.0 in this chapter. CL asks why Undertaker is trying to bring back the dead. What's the sense in it? And Undertaker says he simply wants to look beyond the fated end and that there might be something exceedingly amusing and interesting beyond death. And Sebastian disagrees with him now and says, death is a hopeless and absolute end. That's why I find it most beautiful. And I love the juxtaposition between them. I think it's really fascinating that all of the main characters and their antagonist counterparts are very similar, but very different in their beliefs and their motives. We also have this incredible moment where Sebastian envisions Undertaker getting to CL before he can. And we get, I believe in the anime, it does like a rewind moment that is just cliche Black Butler. Really cool. And these panels are so intense. And I remember reading this through the first time and panicking here, you know, but then we go back and see that Sebastian's just calculating in his head and goes to protect CL right off the bat, which is exactly what Undertaker expected. And then we have my favorite line in Kuro, me and my partner's favorite line in all of Kuro, where CL is telling him off basically for not catching Undertaker. And Sebastian says, "By the terms of our covenant, your life is my first priority. I have gone to great pains to cultivate you. I cannot afford to have him steal you away." It's such a stark reminder of what's going on here and what the purpose of all of this is, because while CL has his goals and his driving desires, we oftentimes forget that Sebastian has his as well. And so when Sebastian doesn't immediately follow every single one of CL's orders to the letter, there is a good reason for it, and it is because of things like this, where one of his orders, where an initial part of their contract has more weight and more leverage than an order CL gives. And I'm interested to see how that may come into play later. Also, this haunting panel of the midnight tea party, completely empty except for the bizarre dolls, and Sebastian just standing there in front of CL. This panel feels very quiet to me. At the end of the midnight tea party, the P4 are expelled for what they've done. And it says, "Their comeuppance may indeed have been crueler than death to the P4 as they chose the traditions of the school over human lives," which seems like a fitting punishment for those four. Is very skewed in perception of the outside world though, which is why I believe CL keeps referring to it as a miniature garden, because everything functions in this very contained bubble of Weston. They come back to find the Phantom Hive Manor lawn being eaten by sheep, and CL remarks that a lawn is simply a lawn. Now here is an interesting piece that I really like. We have the photo from the boat parade that Sebastian crumbles and burns, and then he makes CL a dessert. I'm gonna rewatch the anime, but I believe this detail is different, and I think it feels significant to me for some reason. But here in the manga, his thumb is covering his feet. And then he crumbles it and burns it and uses the fire to make CL an extra sweet cake. And then finally, to close out this arc, we have this also very chilling moment where the queen, looking into her cup of tea, asks the question, "Wouldn't it be nice if bizarre dolls were our allies?" And on that note, I'm gonna go watch the next 2 episodes, and then we will finish up with his butler taking off as an extra little bonus. Make it to the bottom of my tea in time. It's gone all cold. It's a little chilly now. That's my tea. That's the end of chapter 84. Let's go watch the next 2 episodes. All right, I am back to share my notes with you on episode 9 and 10, his butler having a laugh and his butler assenting. So let's get started with episode 9. I forgot to bring this up before, but in the introduction, after Maurice Cole is disgraced and cast off as Redmond's drudge, they remove him from the opening sequence and replace him with Harcourt. And I think that's really funny, for one, and also excellent continuity and storytelling. To me, it shows how much they cared going into the season, and the details were very important, it feels like. In this episode, we have Sebastian pulling the tablecloth again, which is such a distinct parallel to the first season and the first couple of manga chapters, like I mentioned earlier. But I love this bit where he pulls the tablecloth off and we get to see kind of this staticky distortion, slow motion, and it kind of feels like they're trying to show us what Sebastian's seeing. I'm also so excited to see Sebastian back as the butler. I love seeing him as Professor Michaelis. You will never hear me complaining about that. However, it is really nice to see him in his usual outfit, being a bit more bold, because as Professor Michaelis, there's only so much he can do, and he has to appear calm and very collected. But the second he puts that tailcoat back on, he's got his sass back, and it's so much fun. I'm really excited for the next season of Black Butler when they animate the Emerald Witch arc, because we'll get to see Sebastian doing Butler things again, but also Green Witch arc is gonna be insane. There's so much that happens in that arc, and I can't believe we're getting that next year. I also have written down here, Phoenix jump scare. They do a bit of a rewind recap so that you know who Undertaker is and why he's significant. And I thought that the way they did this recap was really nice, because they didn't sit and narrate and explain everything to us like they did in Book of Circus. They just showed us a couple of scenes done in this really gorgeous watercolor style, and kind of gave us a little review if maybe you haven't watched the previous seasons in a minute. it would refresh your brain and get you back to where you needed to be. So I thought it was really well done, and it didn't handhold the audience too much. It was really nice. I also have written down, Sebastian is so demonic and gorgeous in this episode. There are so many shots of him that are just like, there's no other word for it. Vile. It's amazing. And I like, they went really hard on this episode and they didn't need to. I love it. When we get the prefects recap, there's this hymnal music playing in the background. It's very angelic and church-like while they're being sworn in as prefects. It's this very wholesome, pure moment. And we know that that's going to be soon juxtaposed by their interactions with Derek and what happens from there on. All right, moving on to episode 10, his butler assenting. I know this is a very serious moment, but when Redmond goes, "I should have known there was something wrong when you couldn't decipher that poem," it makes me laugh so much because it's so dramatic and so accused. How dare you not decipher this poem? That should have alerted me to everything. It's so Weston, like the core of Weston, all this cloak and dagger, secret passageways. It is such a, like, beautifully almost cliche boarding school mystery. And I honestly think, I was talking to my partner about this the other night, but I think one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to Weston is that I am just in love with boarding school mysteries, and I have been since I was a kid. There's something very charming about them and mysterious, and it appeals to my brain for some reason. This whole scene where they're confronting Derek and his cronies and Agares is so chilling and so deeply disturbing, and it is shocking to watch them like reason this whole thing out in their brains and how they think they don't have any other option than to do this. And again, there is no hesitation on Violet's part. He sees what Greenhill is doing and instantly goes for the door while Redmond and Bluer are standing there. And I know, like, everyone joins in together at the end, but again, Violet's undying and flawed loyalty has always really stood out to me. I love that it is then instantly juxtaposed with these gorgeous stained glass cathedral windows. It almost looks like they're in a church. It's such a stark contrast to the previous scene. I also have written, again, Sebastian's teeth are so good. They've made an impression on me, what can I say? I've also got written down here that Undertaker remarks when CL goes back to rescue Harcourt. Undertaker remarks that he is incredibly different from his predecessor, and I think that's really interesting given what happens later on in the story. Sebastian notes that it is unwise to take him lightly, but then Undertaker mentions that they have clearly different priorities, and I love the scene where Sebastian does these very quick calculations and this playthrough of what could happen. I particularly like the bit where he bends backwards Matrix style and gets his hair clipped by the death scythe. It's such a narrow miss that even Sebastian is calculating for. It really goes to further show how much of a threat Undertaker is to the situation. We also have the exchange between Undertaker and Sebastian where Undertaker says he wants to look beyond death, and Sebastian says that if death loses its inescapability, it ceases to be beautiful. And I think that very perfectly describes both of their aesthetics. Overall, it is so interesting to see the prefects and everybody at Weston become so enveloped in this bubble that they can't see beyond their own little world to the outside world and see things in context of the outside world, and that is ultimately their downfall. And when they get expelled, they are forced outside of that bubble and they are forced to look at the real world, and how jarring that must be for them. And we can still see some of the effects of that later on in the story. When Edward returns, he is having a bit of a crisis and wonders if he too would have become like the prefects. Edward says something about finding justice in murder, and CL comforts him and says, I can't even say that about myself, but you're worried about that, and that means you've still got your wits about you. I think CL is genuinely more like the prefects than he is like Edward. In the manga, CL calls it a miniature garden. In the anime, he calls it a stifling cradle that he will never return to. An excellent description of it. I also really like the outfit that CL wears to tea with the queen, and I would love to make that cosplay. I also have written here, it's good to be back home at the manor where grass is just grass. In the manga, when Sebastian goes to burn the picture, he has his thumb over CL's feet. In the anime, he has his thumb over CL's face, which I think there's a lot of meaning and a lot of symbolism and interesting little things that can be pulled out of that. At the end of everything, Sebastian, instead of saying he's going to make a sweet dessert for his master, he says he will bake him something particularly saccharine, and that just, it's so good. And that was episode 10. The next episode is his butler taking flight? His butler doing something. His butler taking off. His butler taking off, which is a kind of bonus chapter in between chapter where everyone goes shopping together after Weston and before the next arc. So today I am going to read chapter 85 in volume 18, and I will be having my cloudy blue-gray skies tea. My partner custom made this tea for me a while back when we had very first started talking, and it's very lavender and apple, and it's really nice. So I'm going to have a little bit of that while I do my reading, and then I will watch the episode. I will be excluding this bonus chapter / episode from my end ranking list because it's not really, it's part of the season, but I don't count it as part of the Weston arc because it does not take place at Weston and none of our usual Weston characters are there. So let's get brewing this tea. All right, my tea has just finished steeping. I'm so excited. I haven't had this one in ages and it's really special. Again, my partner made this blend for me and said that if I were a tea, this is the tea that it would be. So it's a rooibos with lavender and apple, and it's very sweet. It's a little fruity. It's very floral with the lavender, and it's one of my favorite teas. She's an expert on tea. And let's get started. CL's having tea this morning too. Fortnum & Mason Royal Blend. I actually have some Fortnum & Mason Royal Blend downstairs. It's a decaf one. I can't have too much caffeine. And so my best friend Victor got some for me when he was in London, and I love it. It's so good. I should have made some of that for this series. Maybe I'll make some tomorrow for while I'm doing my final ranking of all the episodes. Classic CL and Sebastian reactions here. I love this so much. I can't wait to rewatch this episode. I think all of their little chibi expressions are hilarious. We also get to see Agni again. Miss you, Agni. Oh my god. I love that we get to find out that Agni was alongside us at Weston all along. It seems like the further we get into the story, the more we find out that there were more people at Weston than we thought there were, including Agni, who came along to just keep an eye on Prince Soma and was the cause of the elephant running through the Red House dormitory. Poor Agni. I also love that Sebastian's just ratting him out at every turn and saying, "You were at the cricket tournament as well, weren't you?" Agni's just like, "No." I've also got Tower Bridge here, which I think is very interesting. I've noticed that sometimes we've gotten things in the anime that weren't canon at the time that are slowly being implemented into the story later on, and I'm starting to wonder if Tower Bridge is going to be significant later on, just like it wasn't in season 1 of the anime. But it's still too hot. Bless the animators for also giving us this shot as well. I'm excited to see that one again too. It warms my heart so much when CL gives Baldroy the candy cigarettes because he doesn't want him losing his sense of taste because he's the chef. And I don't know, I just think it's a really sweet scene, and it's one of those scenes that shows a lot of development with all of the characters, including the servants. We also have this moment where they go to look up the information on Undertaker's mourning jewelry, and we find out that one of them is Claudia Phantomhive, who is CL's grandmother. So Undertaker, we find out here that Undertaker is perhaps even more connected to the Phantom Hives than we initially thought just through Vincent. It seems like it goes back and back. CL asks, what exactly is his relationship with the Phantom Hive house? And we are still asking that question to this day, although I get the feeling we'll be finding out relatively soon. Anytime we get to learn more about the Phantom Company, like the different logos for all of the different product lines, it just makes me so happy, as evidenced by the fact that I have almost every bit of Rabbit. I feel like we are returning to the classic absurdity of early Kuro with this chapter where Sebastian pulls Irene's broken carriage to the theater and then gets in the unicorn mascot outfit for her entrance, and then returns to the department store where CL and the others have been waiting in the costume. It's so funny, and it's so like cheesy Kuro, and I love that. I live for stuff like this. Sebastian, ever the capable butler, capable even of increasing the Phantom Company's sales. This excellent ending where CL says, I've decided to use Irene to promote the new perfume, and Sebastian says, your greed speaks volumes, young master, which love when they poke fun at each other. That's an excellent note to end on for this arc, this side chapter. We've had our little comedic reprieve in between. Now it's time to move on to the Emerald Witch arc. I am incredibly excited for the Green Witch arc. It was a dream come true seeing Weston animated this year, and I am hopeful that this means we will continue to get more and more. The Green Witch arc is arguably, for me, the Green Witch arc is one of the strongest arcs in Black Butler. I'm so excited to see it animated. I'm going to take my tea and I'm going to go watch episode 11 now. This is where I will be ending part 2 of this Weston in a Week series. I will have part 3 up as soon as I can. In the description below, I will have links to my Instagram if you would like to follow along with the project, as well as a playlist I've made for the project, and a quiz if you would like to find out which Weston house you belong to. That is it for now. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.